welcome back to Views on Brews. I'm Brendan and this is going to be part 2 in my series of how to brew a black IPA. We're going to go really in detail, in-depth videos, giving you as much information as I possibly can cram in. So in part 2 we're going to be looking at research and recipe formulation. We're going to get a recipe together for this beer and I'm going to show you how I put the recipe together, all the sources of information that I used for this recipe, and hopefully it'll give you a bit of an insight into recipe formulation and understanding the style of beer that you're about to brew a lot more in detail. And yeah, just cracking on with getting ready. One more thing ticked off the list for brew day. There's so much information out there now. You can literally go online, look through beer blogs, social media, YouTubes, brewing software, homebrew clubs, and brewing books, which I like. Brewing Classic Styles as one of my favorite books. Beer magazines, the BJCP, Beer Judge Certificate Program, style guidelines, the American Brewers Association. There's just an endless list of places to go to get information on the style for this black IPA. So I spent a lot of time just looking at these different resources and working out which ones, A, that I trusted in, B, that I thought had a common thread through them all, and C, which one sort of spoke to me in terms of, you know, what am I trying to achieve in this beer? Okay, so with just a couple of days research into this black IPA, I've already got a pretty good idea of what I'm shooting for now. The BJCP style guidelines is a great resource, especially if you're just doing a beer for the first time and you've not made that style before, or if you want to be reminded of what that style is like. Now, you don't have to shoot for a style. You can do exactly what you want, but the style guidelines do exactly that. They just give you a guide to go on. If you want to go and break the rules and do something completely different, you know, take out some of the hops and replace them with something completely different, that's up to you. The style guidelines are just there to give you an indication of what the parameters are to be within style. If you want to go without style, outside the style, that's totally fine too. But what I'm getting from a lot of the resources that I've looked at so far is that this black IPA needs to be dry, it needs to be hop forward, without strong roasted character, no burnt notes from the dark malts. So again, I need to think about the types of malts that I use in relation to not getting too much roasted character out of it. So restrained dark malt flavors, light to no roast, chocolate flavor okay, bit of nutty, toasty, rich, perhaps a bit of coffee, caramel, toffee, that kind of thing. Can go for all of that. Highly hoppy aromas, any kind, in fact. Stone fruit all the way through, you know, stone fruit, zesty, resinous, piney, melon even, berry, any kind of strong hoppy character seems to be good. Tropical, fruity. Definitely all the way through on the aroma and the flavor there. We're shooting for something between dark brown and black. So I don't need to get it quite to black. So that's quite important when I get my recipe going together, because I'm gonna have to fight with that contradiction of trying to get a dark beer, but also not getting it so dark that that comes across in the character of the flavor and it becomes too roasty. So that's what I don't want to hit. So what else have I taken down here? So I've just written down a scrap of paper all the things that I'm shooting for and all the things I'm not shooting for. Yeah, no roast aromas, or low anyway. You can have some roasty character in a black IPA, but it seems to be that the more roasty you go, the closer you get to a porter or a stout, and the more that contradicts or fights with the hoppy aromas. Now, if you want to go outside the style guidelines and aim for a roasty black IPA, that's fine, but from what I'm reading, that sort of gets you in the ballpark of an export India porter. So the kind of porters they used to send across to India, you know, all those kinds of stories, but heavily hopped to keep them from spoiling on the journey across. So yeah, dark brown to black flavor, medium to low, high flavors, medium to high bitterness, clean base, caramel toffee optional. Again, it keeps coming everywhere I've read throughout the books and all the online articles, they're all saying restrained roasty character. And that seems to be the buzzword for black IPA. So get the color, get some of those lighter flavors, but not heading into the ashy, burnt, roasty element of the flavors. Otherwise, you're just making a hoppy stout, which is fine. If you don't mind what you end up with, that's absolutely fine. What else have I got? A light enough drinkability to the mouthfeel of the beer, bit smooth, not astringent on the flavor, so it shouldn't be harsh on the tongue. A decent amount of alcohol you can have in there. We're looking at not really hazy, not overly roasty. If it's too hoppy, you know, you can get astringency from all of that. So I need to be careful when I make the recipe that I'm not heading into any of those territories where I might build my recipe and then think, oh, that's great, but end up with something that's overly astringent that I can't drink 44 pints of in the end. So the style guidelines have been good to me here. They're giving me a good direction, coupled with what I've seen that sort of backs that up and supports that online, and in some of these books, especially this one from Gordon Strong, where he's got a black IPA, and these have given me some ideas of malts as well and hops to use and the kind of clean character that I need from my yeast. So I'm already thinking US-05. I'm thinking I don't want any unmalted roasted barley in there. I'm thinking I need a type of black malt that is dehusked, because husks is where you get that harsh, astringent, roasty character from, and just too much dark malt as well. So I'm gonna have to be careful of the percentages as well. So all this research is helping me now formulate ideas in my mind so that in a minute when I go to write my recipe, I can start looking back on it and see, does it key in with what I've written down here. Heading between 50 and 90 IBUs, bitter in units. The SRM is between 25 and 40. There's quite a lot of scope there. 25 is nearly brown. But I don't want to make a brown IPA, I want a black IPA. The OG is in and around the 1050 to 1085 mark. 1085 starting original gravity is going to get me a double black IPA, which I don't want. I want to be able to have a few pints of this. Finishing gravity somewhere between 1010 and 1014, and the ABV I'm looking for, or I'm shooting for on the lower end, is around 5.5 to 6.5%. So I now can start building my beer with on my Beersmith app, which is what I'm going to use, with all of that knowledge going forward, and with this information in front of me, I should be able to put together a recipe. And even on the Beersmith app, a lot of these brewing apps will tell you the types of malts that you need to be looking at to make your beer with. So now let's get on and make this recipe and get moving ahead with ordering my ingredients. So over the next few days, I started making several different versions, ended up with 10. You can go ahead and pause through these and have a look through them. Try and sort of see the relationship. I tend to look at the percentages of the malts, but by version 10, I got it up to nearly 90% pale malt, which is pretty much where I wanted to go, so that I don't have too much dark malt going on and risk too much roasty character. I am a little bit concerned that I've got 6% Carafa 3, but we're just going to see, and we're at least going to evaluate that afterwards. Is it something that was too much or spot on? A decent amount of Simcoe in the boil, and then I had Simcoe and Mosaic, so those are the two hops that I've decided to go with. Mosaic will fill out the flavour somewhat and not have the hops being just one dimensional. Now I did have 70 grams for each of the dry hop as well, but I reduced that to 50 because the ABV may not be able to carry that amount of dry hopping, and at least I'll be able to see one way or the other. Not forgetting as well, this is a malty beer to some degree, so I don't want the hops to be taking over the entire character of the beer. There's a decent amount of IBUs going on there, nearly 75, so we're right on the money, and I was happy with it for my own brewing profile. Obviously if you're using an app you need to set up your own brewing profile, but this is where it's getting me. The OG is supposed to be 1055. I like that for one sachet of yeast, and the finishing gravity 1014. I might even get it down to 1012, so there's a bit of wiggle room there for a higher ABV. But other than that, I'm really happy, and I think now it's time to get all my equipment, make sure that I've got all the malts, order anything that I don't have, and get on with setting up for the night before for the brew day. That's going to be coming up along with milling your malt, getting your water and your yeast ready, and prepping up ready for the night before, all in part 3.